Hi there, I'm Waiting Moose, also known as Erin, and this is my booktube channel. Today I want to talk to you about my summer book haul, and I know it's a little late for this because it is November, but I thought I would tell you about sort of the road trip that my husband and I did in the summer. Well, I'm not going to tell you about the road trip, you don't want to hear about that, but I'm going to tell you about sort of the books that I bought, and some of the books that I bought, as well as where I bought them, because there's some really neat and unique bookstores in Oregon and Washington. So first up, I've got The Diary of a Young Girl, which is by Anne Frank. This is a true story. It is actually the diary that was found in a house in Amsterdam after a Jewish family was taken to a concentration camp, and Anne Frank was the daughter. She was almost 16 years old when she died in the concentration camp near the end of the war. So this is a very interesting book. I've never read it, but it's very, very well recommended. A lot of people read it. I think I'm probably the only person my age that hasn't read this book, so I gotta get on that. Next up, I have a couple science fiction books. These are weird. So sometimes I buy books because of the covers, and that's what I did with these next two books, and you'll see why in a moment. The first book is by David Alexander Smith, and it's called In the Cube. Yes, that's a beaver with a gun. It's weird science fiction. It's just something a little different. It's, these covers are great. So I'm going to read it, and hopefully it's not just another pretty cover on the shelf. Hopefully it's actually got a good story as well. The second one that I bought just for the cover was Earthman's Burden, and it's by Powell Anderson and Gordon Dixon. Yep, teddy bears. This is a planet. I think it's 500 light years away from our solar system, and it's populated, it's very much like Earth. It's like a duplicate of Earth, but it's populated by cute and cuddly bears. And it's, there's Old West saloons, and there's Victorian England, so it looks like kind of an interesting little romp, if you will, in deep space with teddy bears. Next, in science fiction, I have a novel set in the future in Boston. This is The Last Policeman by Ben H. Winters. Now, it is basically an asteroid is about to hit Earth, and we're all going to die anyway, so what's the point of solving crimes? That's the premise of this book, but it is the story of pre-apocalyptic United States. Should be an interesting read, and it brings together one of my favorite genres, not science fiction, police procedural with science fiction, which I'm trying to read more of because there's a lot of really good material out there. So continuing in the detective line, I have Dennis Lehane's Sacred. This is one of the novels in the Kenzie and Gennaro series, and they're two detectives based in Boston, and they solve crimes. This one has a missing woman in it. They're hired to find her, the missing woman. So I've really enjoyed this series. I like the characters. I like Boston. There's so much to like about this, and I'm almost done the series, so I'm quite happy about that. Next up, another one of my favorite authors. You're going to hear that a lot in this stack of books because that's what I kind of focused on the trip. This one is Ian Rankin, and it's called A Hanging Garden. This is not the next book in the series for me, but the one after the next book. So I've got one book to read before I get to this. This is the Inspector Rebus series. He is a police detective based in Edinburgh, Scotland. His cases take him outside of Edinburgh, but they're typically right inside of Edinburgh, and he's a very bitter man. He's a bitter, angry cop, and these are dark, gritty novels. So I don't read them very often, but I really enjoy them when I do read them. It's about 400 pages, and it's very literary, so it's sometimes hard to get through, but I do love the books, and I actually like the flawed character in this one. Next up is another private detective. This is a Jack Reacher novel, Personal, by Lee Child. Now, this one is a long ways down the series for me. I'm not going to be reading this one for a while. I got it for $3 at a thrift store. It was so great. So Jack Reacher is an ex-military policeman. He's kind of lost since he got out of the military. So he wanders around the country. He doesn't have a fixed address. He doesn't really have, he's got a toothbrush kind of and a suitcase. So he goes around the country, he meets people, he helps them out of jams, and he's kind of a private detective for hire, but not for hire. Really, really good series. And my last detective novel is set in Alaska. This is another series. This one's called A Fine and Bitter Snow by Dana Stabenow. And it's a Kate Shujak series, or Shugak series. I'm not really sure how you pronounce that. There it is on the back, Kate Shugak. So this one, again, set in Alaska. She is an ex-investigator for the Alaskan DA's office. And it's very interesting. She's a Native American woman. She's incredibly smart. She cares about her community, but she's fascinating as a character. And it also goes into some of the problems in the community, not just the Native community, but the entire community, with oil drilling and the nature and drugs and everything else and alcohol that's a problem in those communities. So it's really, really a good series. I totally recommend this series. And now I have another, I guess, interesting kind of novel. It's an archaeology-based mystery. So Elizabeth Peters, this is a hippopotamus pool. And basically not Elizabeth Peters, that's the author. Amelia Peabody is the main character in this, and she and her husband and her son are, well, her husband's an archaeologist. She goes along, and she's basically an archaeologist too, but during the time period she can't be because she's a woman. So she's very knowledgeable. She helps her husband out, and then their son is this bizarrely precocious, insanely intelligent little child, but he's also a brat. And they're kind of bumbling detectives. Their son Ramses typically ends up solving the mystery for them while they think that he's off in bed sleeping kind of thing. But so it's very, very funny, very interesting. They're often in Egypt. Well, they're usually in Egypt or the Sudan or somewhere over there with archaeological digs. The next book is set in Washington State, a small fictional town called Alpine, and this one is The Alpine Fury. It's the fifth book in the Emma Lord series. She is a small town newspaper editor, and basically people die, and she investigates. It's the typical cozy mystery theme, so it's very interesting. She's a single mother with one son. Next up, I have Donna Andrews' Crouching Buzzard Leaping Loon. This is a cozy mystery series based around a character who does decorative wrought iron work. Now, again, people die around her. That's what happens. So she's often at craft fairs. The last book was a Renaissance fair. In this one, she's actually temping at her brother's computer game company. So that's monitor floating in the water. So I don't know exactly what this one's about, but I do like the series, so I'm looking forward to reading it. And finally, I have another Dana Stabenow, Kate Shujak mystery. It's called Breakup. I have one book before this one, which is Blood Will Tell, that I need to read, and then I can read this one. So again, set in Alaska. She is a Native woman. She investigates murders and crimes in the community, and she is just fantastic. So that was my summer reading, or my summer book haul. We did a lot of shopping at Auntie's Books in Spokane, which is such a great bookstore. It's a new bookstore as well as a used bookstore. Several floors, shares space with Uncle's Games. It's just a lot of fun to visit that store. And we also hit Powell's in Portland, which is this huge bookstore. It was really fun. I mean, you get lost in there. I actually lost my husband for a bit because it's all different rooms and different floors, and we spent hours in there going through all of the books. Fantastic place. I really, really enjoyed shopping there for my used books. And then we hit some other thrift stores and things in some other small towns, and it was a lot of fun. I would totally do that again. But it was great picking up a lot of books that are next on my to read list. So thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again.